Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to another Eternal set review. Today with the new cards from the Trials of Grodov, the new sort of, micro set. This time it doesn't come with a campaign, it's just kind of like a micro set that's released to the store, but basically functions like the campaign cards in the past. But instead of a campaign we get like an event this weekend, I think, and so on. So yeah, it works a bit different. They just didn't want to do the typical campaign thing this time for whatever reason. I don't mind because I haven't been the biggest fan of campaigns anyway. But yeah, anyway, before we dive into the new cards, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button down below, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on anything, and now onto the cards. Okay, so first we have Yeti Pioneer. Both a Yeti and an Explorer, both can be potentially relevant, so that's worth keeping in mind. And then, yeah, it has Reckless, so that's kind of problematic potentially, but it also has a pretty big upside. When it attacks, you get +1 power this turn, allowing you to ramp from 2 to 4 without playing like a fragile power dog that isn't very good as a unit. While a 3-2 for 2 is actually pretty solid stats. Obviously the Reckless is kind of potentially punishing here and also makes it less reliable, but it allows you to, for example, play a 4-drop on 3 and then maybe trade Pioneer in combat, which is pretty solid. So it's kind of an interesting card to keep in mind. Could be an interesting fit for Yetis, for example. Also gets better if it gets buffed and stuff, so it doesn't die as easily and lets you play turn 3 Sudrock, stuff like that. But yeah, in general, an interesting card to keep in mind. Not a slam dunk though. Next we have Ica Whirling Death. That's kind of an interesting card in a way. First off, the 4-cost 1/1 Berserk double damage is kind of like the whole package for just like one-shotting people. Obviously super fragile though. But it also is an Oni, which can be a nice bonus, but I don't see it being that relevant here. But there's another new card that makes this a bit more interesting. The ultimate is kind of expensive, but can come in handy, I guess. So yeah, this is kind of a potentially interesting role player for either like a combat trick heavy, trying to go all in deck in either, I don't know, Stone Scar or Recano maybe, because of like abusing double damage with pump spells, like Reinvigorate and Finest Hour or Rapid Shot and the new Strike, stuff like that. So yeah, once again more of a potential interesting tool than a great card in a vacuum. Then again, the ultimate is pretty powerful once you get there. Getting a free plate is pretty strong, especially on a Berserk double damage unit. But yeah, Ica is very fragile and needs support to get there, and the problem that it's a 1/1 for 4 is fairly big in a world where we have snowballs and virus favors and stuff like that. Highway Man is gone, so that helps, but still seems a bit ambitious to put that card in most decks, unfortunately. Next we have Hunter's Shot. 4-cost, deal 4 damage, and if you onslaught it, you get to put a Hellhound on top, basically like the 1-cost card that does that, except that it's not a 0 for 1, but it just is an okay removal that does that on top, like a non-fast mortar, basically. Card is decent, it's not that great. Might be kind of interesting in, I don't know, a Skycrack deck, for example. But ultimately it's a bit clunky and inflexible, even though it does decent stuff. So not sure if and how playable it's gonna end up being. Next we have Forge Fire, which is kind of a different take on the Justice card that we got like a couple of campaigns ago. Here you give one of your weapons +3/+3, and its wielder deals 3 damage to an enemy. So that means if the weapon gives you any battle skills, they are affected by Forge Fire, the way it is worded, which is kind of the intention. And yeah, other than that, it just buffs your weapon. I think it's going to be a bit too expensive and situational in the end to see play. My assumption is that the card is just not going to be good enough, but I don't know, maybe there will be some use, but it's unlikely. Next we have Cloak of Moments, another like interesting sort of tool to push one of the new mechanics, Shift. For 1 cost relic, your units cost 1 less to shift, and when one of your units emerges, it gets +1/+1. There are some 1 cost shift cards, like for example 3/4 Wood Reckless, I forgot the name, where you could play this turn 1 and then also still shift a card for free, making this relevant immediately and then make it come out as a 4/5 Reckless on turn 4 instead of the 3/4, which is much better. So maybe there is enough shift stuff to sort of make this work, make this interesting. Problem is, one of the better shift cards I could think of is Aurelian Infestation, which doesn't work with this because it's a spell. Next we have Borderlands Stray Cutter, more shift support. When one of your units becomes shifted, it emerges 1 turn sooner. I think that only affects cards that you shift after Stray Cutter is already in play. So if you shift something, say on turn 1 and then play Stray Cutter, it's not going to emerge on 3, the way I understand it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it's a 2 cost 2/2, so a bit underwhelming there. And the ability is kind of strong though. Sure, paying 5 to draw a card is kind of expensive, but the fact that it auto shifts cards that have shift for free is potentially pretty powerful and gives you like a nice save of power, and also allows you to like draw into cards with expensive shift cost and cheat them out and stuff. So there are a couple of cool, interesting things here, but the competitive viability once again seems questionable at best. Next we have Sabretooth Sprite Leader. This card is actually pretty sweet, I think. First of all, 3/5 ambush means that you can often turn this into a decent like 2-for-1, and then even potentially into a 3-for-1 if you get to kill an enemy relic, and if not, you at least gain 3 health, which is also nice depending on the matchup. Seems like a pretty nice role player for Constructed, potentially a nice market card and so on. Just kind of a cool tool to have around, I think. Then we have Nash, Desert Prince, a new Nash / Prince of Persia. Got an upgrade. Like, I can't help it, the card looks so much like the modern Prince of Persia in the modern 3D games. It's not even funny anymore. Or like Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie. It's just basically Prince of Persia. So yeah, it's a 6 cost 6/6. At the start of your turn, you play a 1/1 Arana with Killer, which is a 1/1 without any other abilities. And then, you on summon, you put each unit with flying on the bottom of its deck, which is potentially really powerful. This seems like at least a very powerful market card against flyer heavier decks, like Rakano, for example. If this even only hits like 1 unit, like SADT or something, it's already pretty powerful, and if this ever hits like 2, pretty brutal. So the card seems pretty nice and one of the better constructed cards from the set, I would say. Then we have Edged Armor, the 3 cost +0/+3 weapon that gives the wielder Aegis. I don't think this card is gonna be relevant or good enough, so unfortunately just kind of ignorable. Next we have Tribe Craftsman. On Oni ally, you play a Justice Sigil from deck depleted, and the 3 cost 3/2 Oni, which is kind of nice. There are a couple of more expensive Onis to ramp into, like the 6 cost 3/4 that searches for a weapon. There's a new 5 cost Oni that we're going to talk about in a moment, stuff like that. So this seems like an interesting card and an attempt to like make Oni work more, but could also be used in other shells with a couple of like just generic good Onis as a ramp maybe. We'll have to see. But yeah, we'll see if there is now like an Oni tribal deck that is good enough, at least having like a secondary tribal theme. Kind of a sweet card. Next we have Yisha the Equalizer. Possibly the best or one of the best 4-drops in Justice. The 4-cost 5/5, that alone is pretty solid. Then when you play a unit or weapon, its attack or health or armor becomes the higher of the two. Like if you play a melee is suddenly an 8/8 the next turn, for example. The ability is not that great, I think. It's kind of marginal-ish, but it's pretty decent. Like if you play a Bullet Shaper later, it's a 3/3. If you play a Smuggler after this, it's a 2/2, and so on and so forth. There are just like a couple of nice upsides. And given that a 4-cost 5/5 is already pretty solid, and some weapon synergy like Auric Runehammer suddenly becomes like 4/4 and stuff like that, is pretty solid. So this seems like one of the most impactful cards from the set. This and Nash probably, but I'm not entirely sure yet. But this is one of the fewer generic, like high quality standalone cards with upside. Then we have Oni Combatant. That's the other Oni that I was talking about. It's a 5-cost 4/4, and on summon you give 2 other Oni wielding weapons. +4/+4 while you have Oni Combatant. It's obviously very conditional and fragile. You need 2 Onis, they need to have weapons. Fortunately we have an Oni 2-drop that helps with the weapons part and is an Oni. And then they get +4/+4, but only while Combatant is alive and unsilenced. So a lot of blowout potential for the opponent, like fast removal and stuff. But it's also a pretty powerful effect if active. So we will see if this does enough to sort of give Oni the power and the punch that it needs. It certainly pushes Oni more towards a mid-range beatdowny strategy and a bit more away from the more aggressive direction that it seemed to have before. Not that it was viable, but if you would want to build an Oni deck, that's the direction you would have to go. And now you can go with more robust and mid-range. Then we have Battlefield Instigator, 2-cost 2/1 flying, and on Onslaught it gives another one of your units Berserk, which is kind of nice. Like this looks decently interesting in, say, Skycrack, for example. The problem is that the deck already has very many good 2-cost options, so it's a bit tricky there, and the fact that this only works with Onslaught, meaning that most of the time, unless you have like a relic weapon or something, you will not be able to use the Berserk the same turn, giving the opponent a chance to kill the unit you gave Berserk to, for example. And then it's a 2-drop that is 1 health dying to like snowballs and stuff is also a problem. But it's a card that is like decent quality-wise and something to keep in mind at least when building decks and looking for 2-drops and more aggressive decks. But yeah, lots of good competition, so it's gonna have a tough time. Then we have Blood Hunt, basically a worse Xenon initiation, because instead of +1/+1 we get a Scout. It's easier to cast than Savagery, obviously, and Scout is decent, but yeah, the +1/+1 from initiation is much better. But if you now are in a deck where you either want more killer effects or have Savagery main and want like Blood Hunt in the market, stuff like that, this is a nice option to exist. So it's very like niche, but it might show up here and there every once in a while. Then we have Prey Finder. When one of your units makes a killer attack, you draw a card. It's a 3-cost 2/4. It's an elf and an explorer, which is a nice bonus. Although in the elf department there's not a whole lot of killering going on, so the card doesn't make that much sense there. But the explorer part goes well with dinosaurs, where there's a bunch of killer. So a nice card for people that like that. Not sure if it's going to have much like competitive impact there, but it's definitely kind of a cool card. Next we have Sodi Wing Breaker, a 5-cost 3/6, aka anti-Sedidi. At the end of your turn, if the enemy player took damage, draw a card. So basically, if they are not drawing a card, you draw a card. And if you are not drawing a card, they draw a card. So it's kind of like reverse Sediti in a way. Or like old Sediti. Because in this case, it's like you have to deal damage to the enemy player in order to draw a card. And with old Sediti, it was you needing to prevent the opponent from doing that. It looks almost as if this card was being designed before they nerfed Sediti, because now this kind of like mirroring of Sediti is gone because Sediti is different. But yeah, and then on Onslaught, you deal 6 damage to an enemy unit with flying or an enemy side. So obviously you can shoot down Sediti, or you can like even shoot down a palace or a peak or something like that. So that's pretty nice. This is one of the other cards that has quite some potential in Constructed, at least as like a market card. Not sure how good it's going to be in main deck, because yeah, it's a 5-cost 3/6, which is not that great. And it's a bit of an odd design, given that it's kind of like clearly targeting a specific powerful card, which is weird. Then we have Distilled Venom. When you twist one of your units, the cursed unit gets -1 health instead of the unit you twist. Doesn't seem great, pretty expensive and slow. Removal, sure, it lets you twist more on a certain unit and stuff, but there's not even like good twist units you really want to play, especially now that they're combo. So yeah, seems pretty irrelevant to me, unfortunately. Then we have Debtor's Shackles. When a unit goes to the enemy void, it gets void bound, so that's nice. It's a weapon, not a relic weapon. But yeah, it's pretty expensive, 5 costs, 3/2. On Infiltrate, you get to kill an enemy unit, which is nice. But yeah, it's a very expensive weapon that basically requires you to have good evasive units to put it on them and then attack and get the Infiltrate right away, otherwise it's pretty terrible. And all these things are awkward enough that it seems fairly bad regardless. But it's I guess, an okay like void hosing market option for some decks. Then we have Frontier Surveyor, another like twist supporter, the 3/3 flyer for 5, and on summon your units with twist get +1/+1, and they may twist one time this turn for free, which is nice, but yeah, seems once again more like a casual gimmick card that is neat but not actually good. And last but not least, we have Ultra Veil Ripper, a 6-cost 7/5 that on summon plays 3 units with shift from your void and shifts them, and then plays 3 units with shift from your void and shifts them again on Entoop. So quite a lot of value there, but that requires you to have a lot of shift. So maybe there's like a Xenon shift deck with all the new shift enabling. I will definitely look into that and see if there's something there. But if not, this card seems technically powerful, but if there's not enough support, it won't matter in the end, because then the card can only be as powerful as the support that it gets from enough good shift cards. And lastly, where we don't really need to talk about, we get the remaining insignias. Really nice. Now we have all 10 insignias. The 2-faction glory days may ensue, plus now we have like incredible influence in Rakano for Sediti, for example. Also, we have a much easier time messing around with cards like Godan, and also, yeah, we can buy something like Sediti or Tazbu much better in Argenport. It's a pretty big deal for the like 5 influence 5 drops, especially. So yeah, not that exciting of a micro campaign, not very many super relevant or super interesting cards, but a couple of neat things, and the insignias are a big deal, so we'll see how it plays out. You know the drill, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about the cards and my evaluation. And other than that, if you enjoy the content, subscribe for more, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and Of course, if you want to support the content, please consider whitelisting EternalTitans.com and YouTube on your adblock, and make sure to check the comments for other means of support. That's it again for this time. I'm your host ManuS. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.